We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved. And now we lie in Flanders fields.
In 1914, Canada was a young nation, just 47 years old. A dominion of the British Empire, proud yet still finding its voice. Its population of 8 million was spread across farms, small towns, and growing cities. No one imagined that within months, the lives of Canadians would be tied to the villages of Punjab and the frontier, and to the soldiers they would send to the war. In June 1914, a single gunshot in Sarajevo changed the world. The death of Archduke Franz Ferdinand set off a chain reaction that pulled empires into war. When Britain declared war on Germany on August 4, 1914, the call echoed across the empire. From the maple forests of Canada to the fields of Punjab. The empire answered the call. Canada responded with 650,000 soldiers, whereas British India sent 1.5 million soldiers to defend the empire. More than all of the other dominions combined, the majority of whom came from what is now Pakistan and northern India. Together, they bore the burden of an empire built not on race or religion, but on a shared sense of duty and honor.
So what is now Pakistan was very much an area of recruitment for the British Indian Army.
Prince Arthur, the Duke of Connaught and Strathearn, son of Queen Victoria, was Canada's first Royal Governor-General. He embodied the bond between Canada and British India. In British India, a regiment bore his name. The 129th Duke of Connaught's own Baluchis, raised in Punjab and the frontier, would go on to play a pivotal role in the Great War. His daughter, Princess Patricia, gave her name to one of Canada's proudest regiments, the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, forming a symbolic link between the two lands. The connection, however, ran even deeper. Two Canadians, General Sir Percy Lake of New Brunswick and General Sir George Kirkpatrick of Kingston, Ontario, held senior commands in the British Indian Army, both serving as chiefs of the General Staff. Their leadership united Canada's newly formed army with the valor of South Asian soldiers within the British imperial family. When Britain turned to its empire for support, it drew heavily from those men it considered the martial races of South Asia. Men the empire believed were born to fight. Among them, Punjabi Muslims formed the backbone of the British Indian Army. Pashtuns stood as its most fearsome warriors, and Sikhs as its most formidable soldiers. For many, the turban was more than part of their uniform. It was a symbol of faith, identity, and pride. Among Muslim soldiers, it always bore the kuhl, a distinct conical wrap at its center, worn as a mark of honor. So when King George V appeared at the Delhi Durbar wearing a Muslim-style turban, it was more than ceremony. It was recognition of the loyalty and courage of the largest contingent of his loyal soldiers. As Winston Churchill would later acknowledge, the British Indian Army had become the largest Muslim army in the world, a force indispensable to the defense of the empire. As Germany's armies swept through Belgium and northern France with their Schlieffen Plan, the British Expeditionary Force was battered and on the verge of collapse. Then, across thousands of miles, came reinforcements from British India. The 129th Duke of Connaught's own Baluchis and the 57th Wilds Rifles, both largely Muslim from the Punjab and northwest frontier province of modern Pakistan, were the first regiments to answer the call in the defense of the empire. They disembarked at Marseille in late September 1914. They traveled by train and marched straight to the front. Through relentless shell fire, rain and mud, they took their place beside the weary British troops and refused to yield an inch. In those desperate early weeks of World War I, their courage turned the tide. By the end of November 1914, British Indian soldiers were holding 1/3 of the Western Front. Their stand helped save the Channel ports, the lifeline for the British Expeditionary Force. If captured by the Germans, it would have altered the course of history in World War I.
In that winter of 14-15, 1 in 3 of the British armed forces on the Western Front are from British India. And we've used the phrase a lot in our conversation, hold the line, but actually it wasn't just holding the line. They went on the offensive too.
October 1914, the First Battle of Ypres. The 129th Baluchis faced the full weight of the German advance at Hollebeke. Under the command of Captain Robert Foster Dill, Subadar Khudadad Khan of the 129th Baluchis fought on against overwhelming odds. Manning a Maxim machine gun, he and his team held the line as one by one his comrades fell around him. Alone, he kept firing until the weapon jammed, and to prevent it from being captured, he destroyed it himself, then lay still, feigning death until the enemy had passed. Only then did he crawl back through the mud, bloodied but unbroken. His defiance bought the Allies precious hours to reinforce and plan. For his heroics, he became the first British Indian, the first Punjabi, and the first Muslim to receive the Victoria Cross.
And very near a place called Oost-Taverne in Belgium. And they are withdrawing in the face of a massive German attack. And they're going to withdraw about half a mile back to prepared defensive positions. And the machine guns are covering them, moving back. And the machine gun officer, the British officer, is very badly wounded in the head. He's incapable of doing anything. So they do get him back. The fighting goes on. One of the guns is knocked out. It can't be used anymore. Eventually, all the crew are killed. The machine gunners are killed, except for Sepoy Khudadad Khan. He is wounded himself, but he keeps the second gun firing. Eventually, they run out of ammunition, and the Germans rush the position. But he has held them back long enough for the battalion to get back into their position.
Weeks later, another officer of the British Indian Army earned the same distinction. Captain Frank Alexander de Pass, of the 34th Prince Albert Victor's own Poona horse, was born in London to a Jewish family. On 24th November 1914, near Festubert, he charged a German trench, destroyed a sniper post, and rescued his Muslim comrades. He was shot in the head by a sniper and instantly killed the next day, attempting another rescue. De Pass became the first officer of the British Indian Army and the first Jewish recipient of the Victoria Cross. April 1915, the Second Battle of Ypres. Infamously remembered as the first time poison gas was used in warfare. The Germans released 160 tons of chlorine gas across the Allied lines, a sickly yellow cloud that drifted toward the trenches. Canadian and British Indian troops faced this new and terrible menace head-on, choking, gasping, yet refusing to yield. On their flank, the Lahore Division of the British Indian Army fought in the same salient under the same poisoned sky. While British Indian regiments held the front, reinforcements from across the Atlantic were on the move. In February 1915, the 1st Canadian Division arrived in France, a new army, yet one already tied by heritage and training to the British Indian Army. Many Canadian officers had served with British Indian units, and their cavalry followed the same British doctrine. The Canadian Cavalry Brigade soon fought beside the veterans of the British Indian Cavalry Corps, the Poona Horse, Jodhpur Lancers, and Deccan Horse, patrolling the Flanders and Artois fronts, where Khudadad Khan's Baluchis had stood months earlier. Under the Duke of Connaught's name and the Union Jack's shadow, British Indian and Canadian soldiers shared the same mud, the same rations, and the same code of honor. Upon that line of courage, Canada's young army would soon be tested.
These guys in India, British India, are some of the finest soldiers that Britain has. They're battle-hardened, they're well-trained, and these are the men that we know we will need for the coming struggle. And they're very quickly brought across to fight in France and Flanders, and they see action in the Belgian mud, in the Ypres salient, fighting there alongside the first Canadians who are being brought across from Canada. The Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry fight there alongside Indian soldiers in some of the very first clashes.
At the same battle, Lance Corporal Frederick Fisher of the 5th Regiment, Royal Highlanders of Canada, the Black Watch, also earned immortal honor. Born in St. Catharines, Ontario, and educated at McGill University, Fisher had joined the Army at 18. As the gas attack tore open the front, Fisher saw an artillery battery in danger of being overrun. He led his Colt Browning .303 machine gun team forward under heavy fire. 4 of his men were killed, but Fisher returned alone to continue firing, covering the battery's retreat. Moments later, he was struck and killed. His body was never recovered. King George V later wrote to his parents, "It is a matter of sincere regret to me that the death of Lance Corporal Frederick Fisher deprived me of the pride of personally conferring upon him the Victoria Cross." Within 6 months of the war's outbreak, 3 soldiers from 3 different parts of the Empire had each shown the same unshakable resolve. Different faiths, one battlefield. Their courage reflected the brotherhood of the British Indian Army and the rising strength of Canada's young forces, united in duty and sacrifice under a shared imperial banner. From Ypres to Vimy, Canada evolved into a modern fighting force. At Vimy Ridge in 1917, Canadians perfected new tactics. The creeping barrage, meticulous mapping, and coordinated assault that secured a historic victory. The Vimy Memorial stands as the birthstone of a nation.
It's easy to get kind of overwhelmed in the nation-building narrative, but I do believe kind of the First World War for Canada was that watershed moment, was a nation-building moment.
For the British Indian Army, the war was equally transformative. Soldiers from Punjab and the frontier returned with pride and political awareness. Their service planted the seeds that would one day grow into the independent nations of Pakistan and India.
100 years later, our attitude to the army had started to change. It was no longer a small, invisible army, an army of empire, an army on the fringes of the British Empire. It was an army fighting for what was believed to be a great cause. And as that army started to suffer terrible casualties, so the public demands something be done to remember that sacrifice.
I think people have an innate need to know where they come from. I think if anything, history shows us that the desire to be connected to events, to people, to passages in the past is a strong human desire.
When the guns fell silent on November 11th, 1918, the world breathed a sigh of relief. But for many, it was their last. More than 66,000 Canadians and 120,000 soldiers of the British Indian Army never came home. Their graves lie side by side across France and Belgium. Crosses, crescents, and stars of David carved into the same stone. On reflection, the Great War connects nearly every family here in Canada. Over a century ago, Canadian and South Asian soldiers stood together as part of His Majesty's forces, helping to win the war and shape the modern world we share today. From their valor and gallantry arose a shared legacy of Canada, Pakistan, and India, bound by honor, memory, and hope. This is our shared history and our shared sacrifice. lest we forget